Welcome to Buckets, coming to you from the Tommy John's home studios. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. I'm joined by Michael Fiddle and Albert Wynn, the analytics capper. They're the sharpshooters. You can catch Fiddle on Twitter at Fiddle's Picks. Albert is on Twitter at Analytics Capper. You can catch him in the Action Network app as well as Fiddle's Picks on Twitter and in the Action Network app. We're going to do best bets for Wednesday, November 27th in the association. Day before Thanksgiving, you're going out with friends. You're going to see all of the old acquaintances. You're going to try and duck away from your family to go to hit the bar, and you're going to want some NBA to bet on, and we're going to take care of you here on the show tonight. We'll also talk about NBA Cup futures. We'll get into those as well after the results of Tuesday's games. We record this on Tuesday night. Suns and Lakers ongoing as we record this. Fiddle, let's kind of start there. Let's start there with this conversation. So the Heat heats the most heating that they could ever do. So I just want to set this up for the listeners. Miami is this great value. We talked about it on Buckets on the Future Jays about they're this great value. We said, hey, you just want to basically take like Bucks or Heat to win the group and not Pistons. They're facing the Bucks and they need this one. No Giannis. And so I decided, I was like, all right, that's the point. I'm going to jump in on here for like Heat to win the group and Heat to do this, that, and the other, and all these types of things, because I was like, all right, the Bucks are pretty much giving this up. And then, of course, Dame goes thermonuclear with 25 in the first half, and the Heat lose outright at home to the Bucks without Giannis and mid. Like, just the most heat-sing amazingly available. So the Heat now are basically out of it. They're plus 10, but they're 1-2. The Bucks go to 3-0. They beat Detroit, and they win the group outright. Detroit's got to win. They've got to go 2-0 in order to capture it. So I've got a Giannis 20-1 ticket, but watching the market movement, like I was talking with the Future Jays, it was really funny watching the movement because when Giannis was out, they moved the price on the game and for the cup, but a lot of the books didn't move Heat to make the quarterfinal. So I bet Heat to make the quarterfinal, which was, again, a great bet that is not going to cash now because the Heat out of themselves in this game, Fiddle.
I think the Bucks were bucksing themselves too, having an important game that everyone thought that they were going to show up for, and then you get the late Giannis scratch in Miami. Like, how many times has that happened too? Like, oh, it's playoffs game 3 in Miami. The Bucks are down 2. Giannis is definitely going to show up for this one. Giannis late scratch. So very lucky for Milwaukee to pull this one off. I heavily invested in the Milwaukee side of that East Group B like a day ago before the Giannis news came. So I came onto the stream going, I'm in a good mood tonight. Part of it was having that Milwaukee cover outright. The only thing that I would add into how East Group B looks now is that the Pistons could lose to the Pacers. And then it would become one of those games where Bucks versus Pistons is essentially, if the Pistons do win that one next Tuesday, they would both be 3-1, and then it would become a point differential situation. The Milwaukee Bucks
because they'll have the heads up, so they win it outright. Like if Pistons win the Pacers game, then if they win the next two, they're 4-0. And right. Milwaukee drops to 3-1. Are you saying if they lose the Pacers?
What if they lose to the Pacers and they're both 3-1? Is the first tiebreaker point differential?
Yeah, it's head to head. Tiebreaker point differential is the tiebreaker if it's 3 teams. If it's 2 teams, it's in the same group. It's head to head record. So
then this game really didn't matter for any regard because if it was only the Heat's lifeline to be in the race for that 3 teams. So kind of honestly, that's maybe the reason why Giannis sat and that it wasn't that much of an important game. It really comes down to Tuesday, December 3rd in Detroit for Bucks Pistons. That's going to be one to circle. I actually already think I'm going to really like the Bucks at a reduced price being on the road in Detroit. But yeah, that one was obviously one that shook up the NBA Cup odds because the Heat are now out and the Minnesota Timberwolves are now out. And so the Houston Rockets pull off that. They now are 3-0 when the Wolves sink to 1-2. So Wolves are removed from NBA Cup stuff, and it looks like Houston is very likely to be moving on in their group as well.
Okay, I have a hedge question. All right, and this is like good educational stuff for the audience. There are times when you should absolutely not hedge. I'm trying to hedge a lot less this season, and it's working out pretty well. Like, I'm trying to just be like, you know what? I'm getting good value on this. If I lose, it's fine. I like the bet anyway. I'm okay. Like, I'm okay losing. I'm no longer desperate to be like, I've got 5-1. I'm gonna blah, blah, blah. Now, that said, I definitely hedged the same game parlay on NBA BetStream because we had 5.5 to 1 going to overtime with a young team in Houston on the money line in overtime. So I hedged the shit out of it with the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I do not regret it because I also had Rockets money line as a separate bet. The reason I bring this up, though, I have a Bulls 13 to 1 win the group bet. They get the win tonight versus the Wizards, and they're plus 15 now. Celtics are plus 14, and they play Chicago. There are a couple different scenarios here. If the Hawks get beat by Cleveland, which we'll get to that.
When the Hawks, yeah.
If the Hawks get beat by Cleveland and the Bulls beat the Celtics, there's a 3-way tie. And so like that's very interesting here. On the other end of this is if you told me to program a team that could knock off the Celtics in a random one, like not a team. If you told me, give me a team under 500 that could catch the Celtics randomly, it would be this Chicago Bulls team. All offense, high 3-point variance, high volume. They're playing the Celtics at home. So the question here I have is, there's a scenario where I lose both ways, right? So that I don't know if I can hedge this because if the Cavs beat the Hawks and the Wizards, and they do so by point differential, and it goes to 3-1, even if the Bulls were to beat them, were to beat the Celtics, then I still lose out there. So like I kind of have to cover both angles. But if the Celtics were to beat the Bulls, then they would have automatically advanced to the group. They would win the group here. So Albert, knowing that, I've got a 13 to 1 ticket. Celtics, should I hedge with like a Celtics alt line in that Bulls game? Because we know they're going to be like double-digit favorites in that game.
I personally would not.
Okay.
I personally would not. I think I would stick to my guns there. I don't know. That's too many contingencies, but that's the whole point of hedging and futures and all that.
Right.
So I really can't speak to it. But personally, I would lay off and really just trust that the better team is going to get its job done that night. So yeah,
right,
for me,
Fiddle?
I would lay off. And I mean, it's a great position to be in, but
Right.
I wouldn't ever risk to a point where I could go 0-2 on it.
All right, Fiddle, what do you think?
I think use time to your advantage here. So wait as long as possible, see what market moves, wait for those individual game odds to be posted, see if there's, there's probably not going to be middle room, right? Because you're going to want to hedge with Celtics and then Bulls are going to be plus points. You'll have to see when the Cavaliers tip off. Obviously that game will happen sooner, I believe. So you'll get some more information based on that as well. So wait and use time to your advantage. But I just want to come back strategy wise to the beginning of what you said. I understand the thought to hedge of live in overtime in your particular situation, but hedging parlays is like smack yourself in the forehead. You should have had a V8. Submitting parlays are one of the like minus EV things you can do. Hedging becomes minus EV as well. So then to hedge a parlay, if you regularly get close with parlays and then start hedging them, you are long run going to just destroy yourself. But I understand doing it in some certain situations, or in certain situations you're about to hit like a crazy something, and like the only way that you're going to still make like changing bankroll money, then it's worth doing.
Okay, so no, like Philly, you don't have to. We do this too much on the show where it's like, so I understand. Like, no, let go take.
Well,
your
I was
position.
watching that game and I thought the Wolves had it, so that's where I'm coming from.
Right. So the situation was, I've got a 4-leg parlay. We've hit 3 of them. The last remaining leg is Rockets money line. It's overtime. The Wolves money line is minus 135 versus a 5.5 ticket. I've also got a Rockets money line ticket on the side that's going to be able to balance that out. And so for me, it was, I can guarantee a profit here and no more. I'm not trying to I'm not even using you can use the Action Network calculator to get the exact maximum return. I just wanted to be able to be like, hey, I took a shot here because it's NBA BetStream and we do the parlay every week. But with the specific situation of Rockets, but I also thought I don't know if I should, because you're right. If you're going to bet as often as listeners of this show are, it is a minus EV play to hedge whenever you've got these type of opportunities. If you're going to take the shots, live with the shots. Live with those opportunities rather than chipping away at what turned out to be a plus EV play.
Can I get Albert's opinion? And I'm going to throw in one other thought, and then would love AC to chime in on this. The only other thing that I start to bring into those spots is what was the pregame movement? Where was the sharp side for this? So there seemed to be a lot of Rockets sentiment in the market going into this game, and that line really wasn't budging. And even when Mike Conley was ruled out, it really wasn't budging that much. So I thought it was a clear Wolves spot. I thought the way that the line was priced based on home court in the regular season is probably worth 2.5. And so the 3.5 that was out there on the Wolves still said, hey, this is still the higher power rated team, right? So even late game, Rudy Gobert had some mindless, unbelievably dumb fouls. So I would go back to the pregame, even if it's going into overtime. That's where I want to throw to Albert. How much do you incorporate pregame as it's going to overtime and you've learned 48 minutes of stuff? I always say what happened in, the 12 hours before tip-off is way more important than what happens in the 48 minutes during the game. So do you bring that into a decision to hedge?
Absolutely. I mean, not only a decision to hedge, but you have to monitor how the market is moving pre-game, if you will, because that is going to determine. It's almost like a statistical bias, right? Because that's going to be your mindset throughout the game. You're going to watch the game like, oh my gosh, Rudy Gobert couldn't catch this ball for an easy dunk, right? When he just doesn't catch the ball, or Anthony Edwards, instead of hitting his normal 4.8 threes a game, he only hit 3, right? Why is he not? So you're going to go into that game with somewhat of a bias. But then the thing is, if you're looking to hedge or you're looking to get out of your original position, I personally would never go against that market read. Then I would just swallow the L if it's looking like an L, and I move on to the next game.
Before we move on here, a quick announcement. Action Network is running back our annual Black Friday sale, offering our best prices of the year on a year-long Action Pro subscription. So if you still aren't a Pro subscriber, visit actionnetwork.com/Black Friday to get $40 off a year of Pro and receive instant access to all the picks and projections from our guys, Colin, Calabrese, the whole Action Network team, as well as instant picks from guys like Brandon Anderson. That's actionnetwork.com/Black Friday for the best price of the year on Action Pro. All right. Elsewhere, the Rockets clinched their group with that wild win over the Minnesota Timberwolves. We'll talk about it with the Future Jays on Sunday. I still don't have I have no idea how to bet the Rockets from a Cup futures perspective. I don't know if you should take literally Jeff Pratt and I from DraftKings were talking about, is the MVP play Dylan Brooks? You could make the argument it's Dylan the villain, and that's probably gonna be a very good number. I just don't know. It's also what's weird about the Rockets too. It might just be bet them to win the Cup, because I do think a team is probably gonna have to go to Houston for the semifinals. Or for the quarterfinals. I will like Houston in that game. And then I'm probably going to like them in the semis in Vegas. They're a tough team. It's just I don't know what the best player looks like. I don't know who that is. It can be Alperen Şengün, Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, Amin Thompson was amazing tonight. Yeah. It could be any of those guys, or theoretically it could be Jalen Green, which is going to be the longest shot. I don't have a really good read on how to bet that team in particular. What I do know is that Giannis Antetokounmpo at 20-1 to win MVP is looking choice right now. So I just need Giannis back. Although Dame now is probably where I'm in a little bit of a vulnerability spot with my positions there. All right, let's do best bets for the Wednesday slate. Programming note, by the way, No shows on Thursday or Friday. We are off for the holiday. I hope you guys have a safe and happy Thanksgiving. We're so thankful for every listener of the show. Hope that you are thankful for us and you give us a like on youtube.com/the Action Network and a 5-star review. Do want to let you know, by the way, that we will be back on Sunday with best bets and future Jays. So let's go around the horn and do best bets for the Wednesday slate. Michael Fiddle, what's your best bet for Wednesday?
I'm going to go with a gross one that no one's watching. The Raptors and the Pelicans over 221.5.
Okay, I love it. I love that. I'm in. I'm tailing you on this one. I'm in with you. Albert, what's your best bet for Wednesday?
Equally as worse, the most disappointing team in the NBA. I like the Philadelphia 76ers in the first half plus 2.5.
Okay. All right. As I give my best bet, it's time for me to let you know. We mentioned at the top of the show that we're coming to you from our Tommy John home studios. It's late November. We've got peak NBA Cup matchups, and teams looking to win have to be confident and comfortable on and off the court. This season, we want you to give the gift that helps your loved ones feel confident and comfortable, and that's the gift of Tommy John. Black Friday is just days away. It's time to start thinking about people on your holiday gift list, the men and women that you love, those who deserve the perfect gift and the perfect fit and the confidence that comes only when you're fully supported. And I only feel that way under two circumstances. When I'm hanging with the sharpshooters on buckets or when I'm wearing my Tommy John underwear. The Black Friday sale has begun. So if you're looking to score your gifts early, go to TommyJohn.com/buckets for 30% off right now. Save 30% site-wide for Black Friday at TommyJohn.com/buckets. That's 30% off for a limited time at TommyJohn.com/buckets. And speaking of Tommy John, we got to do the Tommy John Ballsy Parlay of the week. And that, my friends, is going to be a play on the Cleveland Cavaliers because I believe in this team. I believe in their defense, which is outside the top 10. I think it's going to get there. But more importantly, I do not believe in the Atlanta Hawks in any regard. So we're going to do this. We're going to take the Cleveland Cavaliers and we're going to lay the wood with them tomorrow. Minus 12.5. We are also going to take the under 239 with the Hawks coming off of a game against, I'll get to the why here. That is going to be plus 229. Cavs minus 12.5, under 239. The Hawks just played the Mavericks. The Mavericks just played the Heat. The Mavericks coming into the game versus the Hawks were listed as questionable with multiple players with illness. They've got a locker room bug going around. Lots of guys not feeling well. You know what happens when you don't feel good and you sweat all over another team? That team gets sick. Now, I'm not saying that the Atlanta Hawks are sick. I don't care, honestly. I would lay this if the Hawks were in perfect health. They could have been pumped full of this Captain America super soldier serum, and I would not care because I project this to be well under and the Cavs to win by about 18. So I will go ahead and I'll lay the 12.5 of the Cleveland Cavaliers and the under 239 for your ballsy parlay of the night from Tommy John. All right. Fiddle, talk to me about Pelicans Raptors over 221.5.
Okay, so the Pelicans are starting to return some of their offensive players in this game. So it looks like CJ McCollum is going to be back. It looks like Jordan Hawkins is going to be in the lineup. So definitely some perimeter action for the Pelicans that you could trust in an offensive set. And then the Raptors, even though both of these teams are dealing with a bevy of injuries, Raptors just push the pace in transition so much. So Quickly and Grady Dick are going to be out, but Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett should really be out there. Matt, I know you have that RJ Barrett most improved ticket. He is phenomenally improved. It is not just good stats, bad team guy. The way his vision through the pick and rolls with Jakob Podol is truly like unbelievable. His little dump off pocket passes are incredibly impressive. So I really like the way that the Raptors are just pushing the pace and moving the ball, especially transition offense. So I like the over in this spot. I think it closes probably around 223.5. So I think you'd be looking at like 2 points of closing line value. And then obviously the pod doesn't always get posted right away. So I would play this to 222.5.
Yeah, I've got this over just slightly. It's close, but I do have this as an over. I will say I'm a little bit concerned because Pelicans looked very different when they had their guys back the other night. Like I had that game on the over versus the Pacers, and it was a very different look for that team. So I'm a little bit gun shy on it, but I'm going to go ahead and ride with you. I like the market read especially, which is what Fiddle's so good at. Albert, give me your best bet read for Philly. You're taking no Embiid, no PG, and you're taking the Sixers here versus the Red Hot Rockets. Why would you do this?
Give it to me. So last week was a huge Philadelphia read if you're looking at the markets, right? If you're looking at all the screens, it was Philadelphia traveling to Memphis. I think Philly ended up being like a -3 or -4 favorite. I actually stayed off of that one, but I'm going to jump pretty wholeheartedly, full head into this one. I think the Sixers, with all the negative news around them, Matt already mentioned it, no Embiid, no PG. Minnesota, it's just a great situational spot for both sides. I think the Sixers have lost they've lost 8 of the last 10 games. I think they've only won 1 in the last 6, so 1-6. And then Minnesota is coming off a impressive win, Houston is coming off an impressive win against Minnesota overtime. The market read there definitely looked like Minnesota. Late movement, also looked like Minnesota, but Houston got it to overtime. And I'm actually the contrarian when it comes to this. I like the underdogs in overtime in general. If you were a live bettor, I think there's just a lot more value for a coin flip like ending for the underdog there. So Minnesota, Houston got it done. They are very well coached. They're going to be focused, but I think the spot here is 100% Philadelphia. And I think it's, our colleague calls it a trifecta or triple play spot, first quarter, first half, full game here for the Sixers. But I'm a lot more comfortable with the first half. I don't have to deal with, like a 10-0 run in the first quarter that basically kills your bet. And then I don't have to deal with the Sixers trying to close the game out in the fourth quarter. So just give me the first half. I like it. I think Houston, great team. I think according to, Ducks and Threes, are third rated defense in the NBA, which is amazing. That's all coaching staff there because they don't have the personnel. But I think they're all in on the NBA Cup. So they're putting all their energy, all their focus on trying to win something this year because they want to show progress in that franchise. I think that's NBA Cup. This is a non-NBA Cup game. Give me the Sixers.
I mean, I guess I don't hate the matchup. If it's like Drummond versus Şengün, that's a big body on him. A lot of minutes for Şengün tonight because he had to, because Jock Landale was horrific in this one. Houston's so much better, though. Like, they're so much better. The Sixers team is so, like... AC, you're trying to catch a falling knife a little bit here with the Sixers.
A little bit, but I mean, if you just look at a very small sample size, last 2 games, I mean, the Sixers did just cover and just beat the Brooklyn Nets, right?
They did.
Yes, they got blown out by the Clippers. But I mean, this is going to be the last game of their homestand before I think they go on the road for a really quick 2-game set. But it'll be nice for them to build some momentum and end the homestand on a winning note, 2-1. So I don't know. I there's a lot of points in the season where I don't even look at the players. I don't even look at who's playing, but from just a situational spot, something Fiddle does really well from a market read spot. This to me is 100% a Philly read for me.
Okay, here's one. Sixers last 5, 3-2 first half ATS. All right, time for fun with trends with Matt. Well, first, let me give before I besiege Fiddle with ATS trends. Fiddle, give me your read on this game.
I saw the market moves early because with the Rockets going to overtime, the first thing I tried to do is watch the post-game press conferences, see if they were going to be mentioning rest spots. You're now going on the road for the second straight night in a back-to-back after an overtime spot. So you generally see market moves just naturally towards like fading that side, but I don't always know if that's true. It's almost kind of just a gut reaction to when the game goes to overtime, like, oh, they might rest somebody. But the Rockets don't really do that. They're not banged up. They're young. They don't have guys that they rest very often. They have a very competitive coach. So even though the early market was like moving a bit towards Sixers, it flattened out. It's come back towards the original opening line on Rocket side. So market perspective, just totally mixed signals in the beginning. Not sure which way it ultimately moves once like actual big bettors come in and not just reactionary money. And then I listen. I'm very impressed with Jared McCain, but besides that, I love this Rockets team, and I think the Sixers are a mess. So I like that AC is going first half because ultimately I like the Rockets full game, and I haven't played anything on it myself.
All right. I've talked all this year about how one of the big changes I've done with trends work is I've started looking at Eastern Conference versus Western Conference trend splits. And the reason is why I find this so interesting, because you do find stark differentials between East. It's not like I'm looking at these and it's like 52 versus 53%. Like it's stark.
I think there's Matt, go ahead, but I think I know you've been talking about this, and I've been trying to figure out the reason why. And I know I say, oh, we have to figure out if there's a reason for trends, so explain it. And then I think I might realize why it's happening.
Okay, so for me, it's simple. It's as simple as I think that there is an exaggeration of the Western Conference perspective winds up being input into the market, but only in certain Western Conference matchups, and especially when it's Western versus Eastern, it does, and vice versa. That's not being accounted for in the differential, because your strength of schedule in NBA isn't going to impact your power rating as much, because there's an expectation that you're basically just going to play everybody. And so while early season certainly SOS matters, I don't think it's factored enough in, and especially as the season gets longer, I actually think it's underrated in terms of who you play and who you don't. What's your read?
I've been wondering if it's because the talent differential between teams and the fact that if the Western Conference is a 3-game difference between being a top 2 seed and being in the play-in race or almost out of the play-in race, those are the games where like you can't fucking lose. Like right. You need to show up. You need to get that one done. Obviously, West versus West is a bigger swing in the standings, but those games are really hard. And they're physical, and they're right. and so like when you come out against the Wizards or the Nets or like the Sixers right now, or like any of those teams that look a little weaker, the Pacers, you even saw how hard the Pelicans were fighting to the very end of that Pacers game, even though they were on the losing side. Like they were clearly going for it, knowing like we need to get back in these standings. So like we need to use these Eastern Conference games as a launch pad. So I've been wondering like, is it just a massive talent disparity, almost like what we see in the WNBA, when like clearly the better teams smack the worst teams, and you get like the key numbers chart for WNBA is like shows like 11 to be the most common outcome because it's just a talent disparity.
Yeah, I think you're probably onto something there. Okay, so I'm about to give you a series of trends, and the point here is not that there is like a great trend to back aside, but it's almost like here, I'm going to bust this trend a little bit for you. So here's where we start. If you're a Western Conference team and you're on a back-to-back road, and you went to overtime the night before, okay? 15, 28, and 1 against the spread, 35%. Makes sense, right? You're a Western Conference team. It's tough. You just played a really tough game and you're on the road again, back to back. And you went to overtime, extra minutes. That's not just, for me, the overtime thing is not the minutes, it's the emotional rush. Like the Rockets just had this huge win. Like that was a monster win versus Minnesota in a cup game. All right. Except, what if they won the game? Okay, 5-16 ATS. That's even better. We're down to 24% ATS. Okay? But what if you're a Western Conference team and on the second night of a back-to-back, you're playing an Eastern Conference team? We'd go all the way to 12-11 ATS, 52%. If you play a Western Conference team on the second night of a back-to-back, you are dead. It is over. You are not like, I can look at the number, but it's got to be awful. Now, the last one, and this is extremely small sample. This is since 2014, by the way. I'm taking the last 10 years of data. You're a Western Conference team. You're on a road back-to-back. You went to overtime the night before, and you're a favorite versus an Eastern Conference team. 5-0 ATS. So we've gone, it's not the 5-0 because that is a meaningless sample. It's 5 games since 2014. But it's the fact that we go from a 35% ATS rate to 5-0 when we start putting on those limitations. Now, the more limitations, the weaker the sample gets, the weaker this trend gets, right? The larger sample is what matters. But I think it's a fascinating kind of window into contextually, and especially for me, as I look at these numbers, the East-West split is really important. That's not a reason to play it, Albert, but I think it's like a fascinating way to kind of look at this and go, okay, but wait, they played this overtime game back to back. Yeah, but they're also a West team on the road versus an East team, and they're better, and those teams usually smash.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of in this particular case, there's a lot of parameters or backing or numbers that will back the better team here. Minnesota, obviously, Houston obviously is the better team. We talked about their defense. We talked about their depth, their coaching. Right? It's just better. But I'm here actually more looking towards the Sixers side because of that angle. Like this should be, again, I don't have power ratings like Matt is doing right now, but this, if we're just looking at a solid, top 5 team in the West versus the worst team, arguably in the East, this should be like a 8, 9, 10 point spread. But there's a reason why it's so low at 4.5, maybe 5, depending on what you're looking at. I think the books do expect a competitive game here. And one thing we haven't mentioned yet, it is Thanksgiving Eve. So I don't know how players are going to react from a human level, right? Because they're going to be away from their families and their homes and things like that. Again, I don't know how to cap that, but I just like the Sixers spot here, 100%.
Yeah, if I adjust for home court advantage with the Rockets or with the Sixers having a -1 right now, and I do the adjustment for Embiid and Paul George being out, yeah, I have this as a 16-point spread differential in power rating.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not gonna bet it because I think AC makes a really good point about the spot being very bad for Houston here, regardless of those trends data, Mike.
Yeah, I think if you're adding layers to trend stuff too, like going back to the first one that you said, Matt, like away from the Sixers game too, when you travel after a back-to-back, after an overtime game, I agree it's probably not the extra 5 minutes that you played, and the pace is normally slower, and you get less trips up and down the court. But also, like, you have to imagine what time do the Houston Rockets get to? I know it's an East Coast one, so it kind of bucks the example. What time do the Rockets actually get to Philadelphia tonight?
Yeah.
While also crossing a time zone, losing an hour, like. It's there's other layers to that stuff too that just makes it a brutal spot for them. A lot of back-to-backs tomorrow. So I would be this is actually a slate that I've been kind of staying lighter in because you might see a lot of bouncing numbers, late scratches. Like Albert says, he's unsure about the Thanksgiving family angle. I was thinking from the exact opposite. Like, what if the home players have family coming into town, have the kids off, like to be worrying about a bunch of shit, and they're exhausted and whatever, and the away team's like sleeping in a hotel and doesn't have those distractions. So it's like it's nice to hear his counter perspective because I was thinking it, but definitely not using it in my actual cap.
Yeah. All right, that's going to do it for best bets for your Wednesday and for the week here on Buckets. Michael Fiddle likes Pelicans Raptors over 221.5. Albert Wynn is taking the Philadelphia 76ers first half plus 2.5. I like the Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Atlanta Hawks and a small play on the Tommy John Ballsy parlay of the night with the Cavaliers minus 12.5 and the under in that game. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. Hope you guys have a safe and healthy and happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy every single bite. Enjoy all the sports. Have yourselves a great holiday weekend. And we'll see you guys again on Monday for the future Jays as we continue here on the show. Appreciate you guys being with us. We'll see you guys again next time. Until then, let's get buckets.